Suffering silence!
Hey, Mean Matt here. So, WrestleMania 18. Now, I did a review a couple years ago, and I thought, well, I'm doing this series now, so what the hell? Let's see if I get a different perspective. You know, I talked about how the main event at WrestleMania 8 was a bad idea. It was vice versa. You had Savage and Flair in the middle of the card, and Hogan and Justice at the main event. All because Hogan was leaving. It was still a clusterfuck, because you had Shango and Warrior coming out. And now, you get WrestleMania 18, right back at the Skydome in Toronto, and what do you know? You get vice versa. And the card that should be main event is in the middle of the card. And what did get the main event was what you would think, a championship match. But when you think about it, Hogan and Rock were more advertised, much more advertised, than Triple H and Chris Jericho. And the fact of the matter is that, yes, it was pretty cool to see, but at the same time, what would you want to see more? You know, the old lion versus the young lion, if you will. Anyways, WrestleMania 18. So, we had Heat, Sunday Night Heat, which is the pre-show at the time. Rikishi, Scotty, Hotty, and Albert, who defeated Mr. Perfect, Lance Storm, and Test. That was very cool for my brother, because he went to WrestleMania 18, and I thought, you know, he is a fan of Mr. Perfect, so what obviously a good way to see Mr. Perfect in a match, and the pre-show. I slightly remember this match. I did see it, obviously, at the pre-show. It was pretty cool. I think there was a lot of wondering why Albert's on the team instead of Grandmaster Sexay, unless he left. I'm not sure. But, there it is. We get to the WrestleMania 18, which started with music by Saliva, singing Superstar, which is the main theme for WrestleMania 18, and that was a good performance, I must say. Again, I wish I was there. Then we had the first match, the Intercontinental Championship. William Regal last time was going for the Intercontinental Championship. Now, he's defending it. And this time it's against Rob Van Dam. And a lot of people have little respect for Rob Van Dam, and I'm not sure why. But this match was good. Rob Van Dam's first WrestleMania, you know, ECW veteran, and then Regal, the WCW veteran, and this was a good match all around. William Regal, of course, the power of the punch, where he brought the brass knuckles out. First, Rob Van Dam, you know, with the referee turning on those two, did his kick, knocking the brass knuckles out away from William Regal, and hence he tried to use them again, but unfortunately it failed. Five-star frog splash, new Intercontinental Champion, Rob Van Dam. This was a good match. Also, I want to mention to you that, again, being at the Skydome, a lot of these dome stadium type things should be a WrestleMania venue. Every year they should have that. I think it's better. I think it's especially the ramp. I mean, in the Royal Rumble this year, you had a big ramp, but I thought, why not just have that at a WrestleMania? you know, people have to run down and be in the Rumble. You know how long it takes you? If you just... It was, you know, interesting. Then you get Diamond Dallas Page versus Christian for the European Championship. And Diamond Dallas Page was the European champion. This was Christian's way of having a temper tantrum every time he lost. He joined DDP. Of course, DDP is one of the chillest wrestlers there are. Not like Rob Van Dam, but you know. And then, of course, they won the Tag Champions. Where they won the Tag Championship. I think. I can't remember. But then they lost to Billy and Chuck, which had Christian then turn on DDP. So DDP was the European champion, and this match, again, I really enjoyed it, especially the end after DDP retained and then said that Christian did really well despite the fact that he lost against all those people, which in turn had Christian do a temper tantrum. And then we got a Hardcore Championship match. It was supposed to be Maven, Hardcore Champion, versus Goldust. And I don't know whatever happened to Maven. He was a teacher, and then he became a tough enough competitor. Then he came to the WWF, and then he became the Hardcore Champion. He threw the Undertaker out at Royal Rumble a few months prior, and then he became heel, which was a dumb run. And now I don't know what happened to him. But this was a good match, of course. This was a better hardcore match this year at WrestleMania, with Spike Dudley coming out and pinning Maven. And then Crash Holly came out and chased him away. Then we got Kurt Angle versus Kane. And those two had a feud. This was interesting, you know, just to see that. Kane is always billed as the big red machine, the big monster type guy. So it was very surprising to me knowing that he went over. And, yeah. Although I think Kurt Angle cheated. When I saw this WrestleMania again, like a week ago or so, and noticed that, yeah, I think he did cheat. But it was funny, the insult that Kurt Angle said before the match, saying that, because of course, we won the gold in both women's hockey and men's hockey, and for some reason Kurt Angle thought we cheated. Then we got another disqualification match. It was Ric Flair versus The Undertaker, the big evil gimmick. And this match was very cool. Two legends, and these guys did not disappoint. I really enjoy these matches. I really enjoy no disqualification or whatever. And this match did not disappoint. You know, back and forth, blood. Arn Anderson coming out and trying to get The Undertaker. There was a botched last ride, which, you know, then we had the tombstone. Ric Flair won, but, you know, it could have been close. You know, I know I don't like Ric Flair, but the fact that he held his own at the age he was pretty cool. Then we have Booker T versus Edge. This is all because of a stupid fucking shampoo commercial that was directed by Chichiri. It was very cool to see Edge in his hometown beat Booker T doing the Edge-O-Rooney. And, yeah, this was a good match. Edge has always been one of my favorite wrestlers. Then we get Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Scott Hall with Kevin Nash. So we talk about the invasion angle a little bit because late 2001, CW versus WCW versus WWF. And you didn't have the main guys. You had them later, like Scott Steiner, NWO, Goldberg. They all came later. I'll never know why. But in this case, they came back, and Scott Hall and Kevin Nash had a big beef with Steve Austin. Scott Hall was not at his best. Like, he was still battling with his demons. But, yeah, he was not at his best. But anyways, this was a good match. I mean, Kevin Nash should have had an opponent for WrestleMania, but for some reason he didn't. He interfered in his match quite a bit, though. So it really should have been a handicap match. But it is what it is. Stone Cold Stunners. You know, the both of them drinking Canadian Molson. Fuck yeah. Steve Austin rules. Then we got a fatal 4-way for the Tag Team Championship. Billy and Chuck, the champions, who defeated the APA, the Dudley Boyz, the Stacy Keibler, and the Hardy Boyz. And, yeah. So, the Dudley Boyz came out first to the theme music, which was brought out by Saliva. And, of course, you had Stacy Keibler do the stripper dance or whatever. And then Bubba Ray joined it in. It was cool. It was a cool thing to watch. But, yeah, this was an interesting match. Billy and Chuck won, like I said. Interesting. Then we get the match of the night. And, you know, I said this before in the beginning. You know, vice versa. Where this match should have been in the main event. Because you have Hulk Hogan coming back to Toronto, no less. Where he was at WrestleMania 6. Of course, I find it interesting that Hulk Hogan lost twice at WrestleMania, and they were both in Canada. So, Hollywood Hulk Hogan comes back, spits on the fans at first, but then realizes, hey, everybody seems to want the red and white and yellow instead of the black and white. So before the match, Hogan says to the NWO, I have to do this on my own to prove that I can still do it. And then, of course, Rock cuts a very passionate promo as well. So this match was good. Yeah, they went back and forth, really proved themselves, and it should have been main event material. Because, again, you'll look back later on and you'll have your Rock and Cena in the main event for some reason, but yet you couldn't have Hogan and The Rock in the main event at WrestleMania 18. But this was a good match. The Rock won, which, no surprise there, you know. I don't think Hogan would have won this one, but, after the match, Hulk Hogan extends his hand out. Of course, you know, people were cheering for Hogan the whole match. So, what more can he do? And then, of course, they praise each other, whatever, and then Hall and Nash come out, turn on Hogan, Rock comes out, they both kick ass, and then Hogan goes to leave, and The Rock says, no, I want to see a little pose, Hogan. And, you know, what a wonderful, I can't believe I'm using that word, but what a wonderful experience for The Rock. You know, The Rock grew up, like many people, a Hulkamaniac. What better way, besides Edge becoming Tag Team Champions with Hogan, what better way to pose with your hero? Not only that, but to go up the ramp and have your hero raise your hand. This was pretty cool for The Rock. And I know I said a lot of shit with Hogan, or about Hogan, and stuff like that, but you know, it's really cool to see something like that. So now Hogan eventually turned face. It was funny the next day on Raw, having Hogan coming out and The Rock coming out, and being interrupted by the crowd because they're cheering for Hogan. But yeah, good match. Then we get the women's championship match, triple threat. Jazz, who was the champion, versus Lita and Trish Stratus. Now Trish Stratus, hometown hero, came out, Canadian flag, Canadian flag, red top, Canadian flag, tights. You thought that she was gonna win. But if you don't by now, and you should, nobody wins in her hometown except for Edge. This was an interesting match. You know, I did root for Trish Stratus, but it wasn't her night, unfortunately. And it's funny, out of the three of them, Jazz is the one you don't really hear it much of anymore. At least I don't. But she retained the championship. Then we get to the main event for the undisputed WWE Championship. So Chris Jericho beat Austin and The Rock on the same night, having the World WCW Championship, or the World Championship, and the WWE Attitude Era Belt Championship. Yeah. It was a good match. Again, should have been in the middle of the card, but Johnny Poole opened for Triple H during their version of the game. You know, this all goes down to Triple H leaving in June of 2001 because of his quad tear, coming back at Madison Square Garden in January, winning the Royal Rumble, you know. And then, of course, he had Stephanie turn on him just to go to Chris Jericho. And, you know, it's funny because before the WrestleMania and SmackDown, you see Triple H get beat up real bad in the walls of Jericho on the announce table. Very, you know, weird. And then the match went back and forth. You thought, okay, he tore his quad. But nonetheless, Stephanie gets a pedigree. We're going to get a pedigree from Chris Jericho. But of course, it turns out that Triple H will get the pedigree and with the win and become the new undisputed champion. Now, at the time, I was a big fan of Triple H. I really enjoyed, you know, the fact that, yes, the metalhead, he's a real cool looking guy, really badass. It was unfortunate that he went to the corporate side, but, you know, judging by his promos, he hates that. But, you know, it eventually went to the undisputed single championship belt. And it's a shame because a few months later, at the King of the Ring, he loses it to Hogan. So that's a shame, but overall this was a really cool WrestleMania, again, in my country, and once again, and it's a shame because we get WrestleMania 20 through 29, and yet no WrestleMania in Canada. WrestleMania 6, WrestleMania 18, and then there better be one in the future. But nonetheless, this was a really cool WrestleMania. I really enjoyed it. Next year will be meh. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. Me, Matt. See ya. Bye.